When Eric Schultz stepped on campus in 1998, he says he felt an immediate sense of responsibility to give back, not only to Washington University, but to the greater world.
There's no better preparation for answering to the commander-in-chief than being in my mother's house. She made us internalize the importance of citizenship and self-responsibility. My dad was an elected official, and that's where I saw firsthand the power of civic engagement and giving back to your community. My favorite memory is actually moving day. We rented a van, we drove all the way from Syracuse with all my stuff, and we pull up to the South 40. Someone comes to help us unload our truck, and it was the chancellor, and that was remarkable. In full disclosure, the last piece of advice my dad gave me when he dropped us off was don't get involved in politics. My first job was as the tracker on Hillary Clinton's first Senate campaign in New York State. It was the summer of my sophomore year, and they asked me to stay on for the fall. And I was real torn about this, but I spoke to a bunch of my mentors at school, and they said, Eric, are you crazy? Go do this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I worked on that campaign, and it was those relationships that I formed there that allowed me to set on a path to get to where I am now.
Eric worked on a number of campaigns before becoming Principal Deputy Press Secretary and Special Assistant to President Obama.
There's nothing to match working in the White House. I worked there for 6 years, and it was the experience of a lifetime. Every time I walk through those gates every morning, you get chills. And I knew that as soon as I stopped getting those chills, that it was time to leave, but they never stopped. A lot of us who work in campaigns and politics thrive on the competitiveness, the winning, the getting points on the board. But what I learned at the White House is there's much broader equities at stake. That if we have the opportunity to improve people's lives, make our water and our air cleaner, make our schools better, support our teachers, make the world safer and stronger and more stable, then those are opportunities that you don't get anyplace else.
Eric, you can tell straight off the bat, is incredibly dedicated and committed to what he's doing and has tremendous respect for the position and the office. I remember Eric's first ever press gaggle. He gathered the press pool on the side of the road to give us an update, and he was clearly nervous, and we're giving him tons of grief, which is a clear sign of how much the reporters actually liked working with Eric. But the second the actual question started, the second we got down to business, there's Eric with his thick binder. He was very prepared, and he's reading verbatim the answers he had been prepared for, and he did not deviate. A clear sign that he was prepared and able now to do the job of briefing the press, much to our chagrin.
The reporters wanted to follow up with Eric Schultz on that, but he had to go off to his junior prom. I was saying, he looks like he is a child, like he's missing the beanie with the propeller. But I take back all the teasing because it turns out I think he's from Syracuse, New York, which is where I lived for the first 10 years, and only good peeps come out of there. And they do ascend to very powerful positions at a very young age. Well, it turns out Mr. Schultz was apparently watching because we noticed this tweet. Megyn Kelly, I've always said the water in the Cuse is the real fountain of youth. David Muir, am I right? He's with ABC. Hashtag, let's not relive my junior prom. Cuse natives, as it turns out, also have very healthy senses of humor. Well played, Mr. Schultz.
I'm an investigative reporter, so I tend to have adversarial relationships with White House officials. And Eric was a thorough professional. I mean, he knew what his job was. When he got back to you, he always had something to say that was responsive, that could address the criticisms the Obama White House was getting from Republicans in Congress.
One distinct memory I have in the White House was actually a sad day, and it was the day after the election. A lot of us had been up all night, emotionally drained. I remember the president asked us all to come into the Oval Office, and it was him who started bucking up the staff and said, look, I understand that history isn't drawn in a straight line, that there's bumps and curves and zigs and zags. And it was him who sort of talked to us about the importance of living up to the moment and setting an expectation of professionalism and our responsibility to the country. And I'll never forget that moment. There's tremendous opportunity and responsibility for the next generation of leaders to have a stake in the direction of our country. I think it's something that a lot of us in this generation pursue with that in mind. And I think that a lot of the seedlings for that came from Washington University.